useful to freelancers in the Czech Republic who are just starting or who are not sure about invoicing, like how to go about that, what are the rules, what an invoice should look like, what is the difference between an invoice and receipt, what details you must include, and all these kind of basic rules. I will take you through that. So let's jump right in. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat questions about the topic. Then I will be doing live stream, like live Q&As about any other topics. But for that, you need to be a member of the community. You need to be joiner, $8 a month. So if you're interested in that, I'll be happy to see you there. For this topic, I'm happy to answer all the questions related to this topic here. So let's jump right into that. Basically, if you become a freelancer in the Czech Republic, invoicing will be your daily, maybe not daily, but definitely monthly bread. Depends, of course, on how is your freelancing setup. If you only have one client, which is kind of illegal, but let's not talk about that now. You will only be doing one invoice a month, but usually people have more clients, more companies they work with. So you might be doing multiple different invoices a month. And today I will give you the basic details about how to do that. So generally it works the way that you do some work, and then you calculate how much time you spent on that, how much they should pay you, and you issue an invoice, basically a request for a company for your client to pay you. Then you usually have some due date, and then within the due date, hopefully they pay that and it goes to your bank account. It can work in different ways as well. You can invoice in advance. For example, if you have an agreement with the company that you will be doing some like specified work, you can invoice them in advance as well. So you issue the invoice, when they pay it, you provide the service. In some cases, especially for English teachers, often the company issues the invoice, like your invoice, instead of you, which is a weird system, but definitely good for you because you don't have to deal with that. And for them, it's also good because they have like they don't have to like tell you to issue the invoice. They have like 100 teachers, so they don't have to like ask all of them to issue invoices, check if they're correct or not. So it's definitely easier for the company, potentially easier for you as well, as long as the numbers and everything there are correct. So now let's look into the most common scenario, and that is invoicing with no VAT involved. And let's see what an invoice where you're not counting VAT must include. Then we'll take a look at invoicing with VAT as well, which is very similar, but there are some differences, and actually not that many of you have to deal with VAT. So we'll just touch the topic, and let's now look primarily on invoices for non-VAT payers. So there are some okay, for an invoice, there are a couple things that go together. One is that the general rules for invoice are given by the civil code, Czech civil code, but it's very broad kind of. There are like 4 requirements that an invoice must include depending on the civil code. But then of course other laws can influence that as well. Laws related to social security, especially like income tax. So you might want to include some more details than what is officially required by the civil code. Let's go through that now. What should definitely be there and what's legally required is your business name, which in case of freelancers is obviously just your full name as seen in the trade license. Second, business address. Again, you just take this detail from your trade license. If it's the place where you live, that's easier. If you have a virtual address, for example, from us, you just use the address of the virtual business address, which is also stated in your trade license. This identifies you as the business person who's providing the services. The third thing that actually identifies you is also your business number, the trade license number, IČO or IČ, the 8 digits number. So that must be in the invoice as well. And then you should also mention that you are registered in the trade license register or trade register. Should be there just written, I'm registered in the trade register. That's officially what must be there according to the civil code. And that's the very basics. But obviously, if you just issue an invoice where will be your business name and your business address, that's not gonna do much. So it's good to include some other information as well. For example, your client's name, obviously, because they will very likely, if it's a company, they will very likely use the invoice for their taxes to reduce their tax. Use your invoice as their expense, so definitely they will want their name there and their business number, potentially their VAT number, depending on who's the client. But it's definitely good always to have the client's name also for your records, because then if you have 20 invoices with no names, you will not remember like, okay, this is Peter who paid me for English lessons, this is John who paid me for like, I don't know. So it's good for you to have it there as well. Then if you're not a VAT payer, it's good to mention it in the invoice, so there is no confusion about if the VAT is included, if not, if they should deduct it or not. So just a short sentence saying I'm not a VAT payer is good to have in non-VAT invoices as well. Then of course the work you've done or what you're invoicing for, so maybe a work you will do, but what you're invoicing for, because again, if it's like me, I provide services to this company, but then you don't mention what you do for them and how much they are gonna pay you, kind of useless. Good by the book, but kind of like useless for anything. So definitely what kind of work you've done. So English lessons for January, or IT services, project, spaceship. I don't know, whatever is your project. You can also include, like, it depends on how you invoice, because sometimes you invoice for the whole project or you have some fixed amount. You will be doing some work for them continuously, so you have some fixed amount of money you'll be getting. So you just mention that. Sometimes it depends on how many hours you spent on the project, what's your hourly rate. So you can also do like 5 hours of English teaching times 350 crowns, whatever that amounts, whatever it totals. And then I've done IT services, 20 hours, this project, 1,000 crowns per hour, and then the total. So you can play with that, but generally this is a good idea to have there, because it also gives you clarity and both sides can check. The company can check, okay, did he really work, or she, sorry, did they really work for us 20 hours? And you can also say, okay, I've spent this amount of time with that. You can play with that, calculate with that. So it's definitely good to include that. The amount due, of course, that's what I was talking about here right now as well. Good to include means of payment as well. Like you want them to pay your bank account, so you also mention the bank account details. Otherwise, they will not know where to pay you. So definitely good to include it there as well. If they pay by card, if you have that option, mention that as well. If they pay in cash, mention that as well. But you will also need to issue a receipt, which we'll talk about in a second. And then different dates like issue date and due date, that's good to have there as well. It's primarily if you're issuing an invoice that does not have to, like, before you get the payment. Because sometimes you can do it the way that the client pays you, and then you issue an invoice as a confirmation that you received the money, basically. But usually it works the way that you issue an invoice and you haven't received the money yet. You're waiting for it. So it's good to have the due date there. General rule in the Czech Republic is 2 weeks, 14 days for the payment date, the due date. Some companies pay immediately, basically. Some companies will try to negotiate with you a longer period of time. Doesn't matter. It's up to your agreement with the company. But of course, like, I think 2 weeks is reasonable, so I would stick to that in most cases. We've had company, I don't know if I can say that publicly, but it's one of the huge companies in the Czech Republic which offered us cooperation on their immigration cases. But we refused that because they had either 2 months or even longer due date for the invoices, which means that you do the work. They expect you to do the like highest quality of work, but you will not get paid for that for the next 2 months or even longer. And it's just something I personally am not willing to accept as a company owner. If you are fine with that, and I believe some companies, they definitely have providers, and that wasn't the rule meant for us only. They, I believe, have it with most providers. So I guess companies agree to that. For me, it doesn't make sense to wait. They want us to provide the service right away, so we should get paid right away. I understand why they do that, because if they have to pay you £1,000,000, and instead of paying you right away, they keep it 2 months in a bank account with 5% interest rate, it earns them money actually, instead of spending the money. So I understand the delay. There might be other reasons as well, but I just don't agree with that. So, but this is up to you. You can decide whatever due date you want. And ideally, you should always mention the word invoice, faktura in Czech, and also a special invoice number. Special, I mean like unique number, which means that every invoice you issue has a different number. You can either keep it simple and do like invoice number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Even if you have different clients, just like stick to the numbering, or you can have different line numbers, number lines, whatever, like different numbering for different clients. Maybe you can, if your client is Vodafone, you can have like what 1, what 2, what 3, what 4, whatever. Then your client is T-Mobile, so you can do like T-Mob 1, T-Mob 2, T-Mob 3. Then your third client, because I don't want you to know who was the telecom client who has this like long due date. So you have T-Mobile as the third client, and it's T-Mob 1, 2, 3. Up to you. You should just be able, like every invoice should have a different unique number. So how you do it, up to you, but they should have all different numbers. And yes, then the visual actual does not really matter if it's black and white or if it's color or like how is it set up. Does not really matter. You can actually create it in Excel. You can use some online tool to create invoices. You can use some template. It doesn't matter. What is important is the details. So there is a question. So before I go to the VAT invoice looks, I will answer this question if it's related to the topic. So what is this, bro? That's not really related. Is it mandatory to include VAT in every invoice? If yes, who's responsible for that? We'll get to it right now when we talk about the VAT invoicing, but generally you always have to include VAT, like VAT, if you are a VAT payer. If you're not a VAT payer, then you don't have to, and you should not include VAT because that does not apply to you. But if you are a VAT payer, then in 99% cases, you must include your VAT number and calculate the VAT. Might be a bit different if you're, say, a light VAT payer. That means that you are only VAT payer towards some clients. Or if you are just the identified person, which means also that you have clients, for example, in other EU countries, they are VAT payers. So you have to be a VAT payer kind of towards them. Then you need to deal with the VAT there. But if you are not generally a VAT payer in the Czech Republic, then towards other clients, you don't have to deal with VAT. So it depends. If you're not a VAT payer, generally, you don't have to include VAT. You have helped me a lot to know about how to get a visa from India. Thanks, brother. My pleasure. Hopefully, invoicing will help you at some point as well. So let's continue with the VAT invoice. VAT invoice might be a bit more complicated because there are other laws involved as well. For example, the Value Added Tax Act, which specifies what needs to be in an invoice when you're a VAT payer. So let's go through that right now. Your business name, your business address, and your business number. Obviously, that's the same for all invoices. Then the register, again, where you've been registered. So usually it's the trade register for trade license holders. Then your VAT number. That's what was the question of Juma, Yuma, or Rolfo, sorry for mispronouncing. So if you're a VAT payer, you always need to include your VAT number into the invoice. Then there is a date of taxable transactions, which usually means the date when you receive the money or when you delivered the service or the goods. Then the scope of the services, as we talked about it before. So what kind of service you provided or a product, and the quantity, for example. And then, of course, the main difference is in the numbers, because you must have the tax base. Then you have the VAT rate, because there are different like VAT levels, but let's say 21% is the most common. So you say, let's say 10,000 crowns is the tax base, 21% VAT, so the total is 12,100. And then there are different rules on how you calculate that, because it's different if it's below 10,000 crowns, it's different if it's above 10,000 crowns. So there are other rules, but ideally, if you are a VAT payer and you create more invoices, just hire an accountant to do it for you. Don't try to do it yourself, because it might get pretty complicated at some point, depending on how you who you deal with. Yeah, so for VAT, we definitely recommend speaking with an accountant. If you don't have one, get in touch. We'll be happy to recommend the one we work with. He's great. Now, if you accept, generally it's easiest if your clients pay you to your bank account, because that also makes it easier for any residence related purposes. If you use your trade license to extend your residence permit or to prove your income in the Czech Republic, then definitely being paid via bank transfer is the best way, because that's trackable and you can actually prove the income. Cash is not really recommended, because the ministry does not see it as an official proof, because if you got paid in cash, you might have got paid and you might not have got paid, and you just say that you got paid, because there is no record of the transaction. So cash is not preferred from these reasons or from these perspectives. But if you get paid in cash, then you should always issue the invoice, because you should do it for every payment. But you should also issue a receipt, which is just a confirmation that you received the money in cash from someone. And maybe one tip here is that you should ideally always do two versions of everything, or one version but two originals of the invoice, because one invoice should go to the client and you should keep one invoice for your purposes. Potentially, if you're dealing with the Ministry of the Interior, you might want to do three, so you can give one to the Ministry of the Interior as well. But generally, two is fine. And the same with receipt. Usually, there are kind of these booklets which you can which you can buy, and then you just write on one, and it directly writes on the one below that. I don't know how it's called, but you have two pieces of paper. You write on the one, and it automatically writes a copy. And if you buy this, that's easy for you, because then you give the original to the client and then you keep the copy. And it's done, you just write it once and you have both. If you do it electronically, for example, then you should print it twice and give one to the client and keep one for yourself. Ahoj, pan Jan Kalino, mám jednu otázku. Mechanical word. Ask a question if it's related to this topic. If it's not related to this topic, I will be only answering questions in the next live stream, which will be in 3-4 minutes in my joiners area. So yes, bank letter, that's not a question for invoicing. So feel free to join the live stream in my joiners area in 5 minutes. I'll be going there in a second. Then one more thing is that you should, related to invoicing, is that you should always archive your invoices because the tax office and other offices can request the invoices from you potentially for up to 10 years. But now it's fine because you don't have to have it physically, you can just have it electronically. So ideally just like start doing folders in your laptop, or ideally your drive, so if you get a new laptop it still stays there. Do it for every year, keep it for 10 years, and you'll be safe. Very likely for freelancers, no one will ever want it from you, but you have to keep it in case they want it. And it's different for VAT payers because there are higher chances that the tax office will actually do some checks and regular checks on you. So you should definitely keep those invoices if you are a VAT payer. Hi Anna, I don't have a question to this topic, but it's always nice to watch your live streams. Thanks for all the help and support. Thank you very much as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the nice words. Happy to do this, guys, for you. And yeah, it's been a way longer topic than I expected, but we've written a detailed article about this, about trade license, about invoicing, about social security, healthcare on our website. So I've linked, or I've provided the link in the description of the video. So if you're interested in more details about this topic and the trade license in general, just go to the description of the video when it's uploaded and you have the link for the article there. Share it, of course, if you know someone who would appreciate this information, if you know some freelancer who's just starting, or you heard someone that complained about invoicing and that they don't know how to do it exactly. So hopefully this video helps them. And as I mentioned before, I will now go to the joiners area and I will be doing a live stream there where you can ask me anything about any topic, not just this invoicing topic. So if you're not a joiner yet, then go join. It's only $8 a month. You get 8 live streams with me where you can a month where you can ask me anything. Normally you would pay like 4,000 crowns for 1 hour consultation with me. So $1 a session, I think is worth it. So see you there, guys. And if you're not joining, that's fine as well. And I see you again Monday, Thursday in these live streams until the end of the world. Good night. Bye-bye.